Elianna Rose. Today we'll be doing corn husk dolls. Corn husk dolls are a very old craft that first started with the First Nations people. We don't actually know how old this craft is, but they're really fun to make, and they make cute little toys. So I hope you enjoy making corn husk dolls and having fun playing with them. Okay, so the first thing we'll be doing is getting our corn husks and soaking them. Corn husks can be found at some Mexican stores for tamales or at international grocery stores, or you can occasionally find them at craft stores, or you can order them online. So the first thing we'll do is take our corn husks. So we will take, for our doll we will be using 4 husks for the body and 1 husk for the arms. But you can also use 6 husks for the body. As long as you have an even number of husks, then it will fit together nicely. If you have an uneven number of husks, it will not separate as easily. Also, the more husks you use, the larger your doll will be. Okay, so we put the husks in the water, and then we let them soak for 10 minutes. Okay, so now that your corn husk dolls have been soaked, you take them out and then you pat them dry, so that way they will not drip water everywhere. They don't need to be completely dry, just not dripping wet. So then you do that with all 5 of them. And you just pat them dry with paper towel. After you have your corn husks and they are dry, you take 4 of them and you stack them. And try and get the tops even. That makes them easier to tie. So then you take them and then you take your string, or you can use string or like thin twine of some sort, and you cut off a piece. It's about this long. And then we tie about an inch or so from the top, so all the husks have been gathered up. So then you tie it, and then wrap it around and tie and knot it. you want, you can cut off the ends once it's tied. So now that you have your husk, you turn it upside down, and then you split it in half, so you have 2 on one side and 2 on the other side, and then you turn it upside down and flip them over, so it's just underneath. And then you take this about 1 inch from the top and you tie it off. And this will be the head that we're tying. So wrap around twice and then knot it. This is just to get it tight. Sometimes it's a little difficult to tie it tight enough with larger husks when you have just wrapping around once. So it's wrapped around and tied. Then we cut the ends. And now we'll make the arms. So we set that off to the side. We take our 1 husk and then we roll it up. So it's all rolled. And then if you want shorter arms, then you just cut off part of it. And then we're going to tie this end and this end. So first I'll tie this end. So for these ones you can probably only just wrap them once unless you want to get them really tight. So you wrap it and then knot it. And then you do the same on the other side. And this is where using short string is not as easy. Then we snip the ends. And this will be our arms. So we take our doll and we split it in half again. So we take 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. If you have 6 husks, then you'll take 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. So then we split it in half and then we put the arm as high as it'll go. And then you fold it down again. And then we tie the waist. So we get a string. And we wrap it around. Depending on how small you want the waist, you can tie it tighter or looser. So wrap it around twice. Wrap and tie, and then knot. And then cut the ends. And this is a female doll with a skirt. If you want, you can also make legs. So for that, you will separate them. But if you just want to have a doll that will stand like these ones, then leave it like this. If you make a doll with legs, it doesn't stand up, it just falls over, which aren't as much fun, but they can be fun if you like prop them up against something. So I will now show how to make the legs, but you can stop here in the video if you would like. Although stay tuned because we will be doing clothes. So to make the legs, we take 2 and 2 and we separate them. And then we'll tie at the knees and ankles. But first we should cut the husks to an even length. Okay, so now we take our string and we'll need 4 strands. And these ones don't need to be super long, just long enough that you can tie. So then you'll tie kind of about the middle for the knee. Do be careful not to pull your string too tight or it might snap if it is a bit of a weaker string. So you do the same on the same spot on the other side. And now we tie the ankles off. So for that one, this piece of string is too short. Then we tie about a little bit less than an inch from the bottom, or about an inch from the bottom, depending on how big your doll is. And it's tied. You can single or double knot this. And once again, my string is too small. If you'd like, you can measure out your strings beforehand, which makes this process a little bit faster. And then we cut the ends. And then we have a doll.
Next we will be making clothing. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is make the clothing out of felt, and then after that we'll make some hair. So the clothing is pretty super simple. So for a poncho or a dress, we'll just have the rectangle piece of felt. I will be using red. So I want it to be about, we'll cut this rectangle in half. If you want a shorter poncho style, then you have it a smaller piece of fabric. But if you want a longer dress, then you have a longer piece of felt. So this one will be short. So first thing we do is fold it in half. So the longest part's down. So we cut a triangle in the top. So we cut this way, just a little bit, and then we cut this way, the same amount. So then you'll end up with an X in the top, and that will just go over the head. So for that, you have the start of your poncho. Then you can take a little bit of felt. I will use a bit of white. And take a little strip of felt or some ribbon. And you can tie the poncho at the waist. Poncho or dress, I guess. If it's not fitting precisely the way you want it, so if it's like too big for the arms and it's not working, then you can kind of cut it a little bit so it fits the body a bit better. Looks more like a shirt. And then do that on the other side too. But if you cut it too much, it will not go all the way around. So be sure to be careful when cutting. And it works a lot better if you have sharp scissors, but as I do not, you can just use like craft scissors or fabric scissors. Work amazing as long as they're not dull. So then that fits a little bit better. So then we take it and then we tie it around the waist. Or you can hot glue it on if you don't want them to have a sash. So we take it, we tie it, and then I'm going to knot it. And then to get this to hang down, I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and I'll put it here and then I'll fold it. So then it'll stay shut. And the doll has a poncho. To make a bonnet or a head covering, you take little snippets of cloth and you figure out how big it should be to fit around the head. So it'll be about this big for her. So then you take the corners and you take a little snip, so that way there's a tiny hole. Which is more difficult to make than you think. off. You can widen it a bit with your scissors. You make it on both sides. And then now we'll take some string or yarn or ribbon, and we'll take 2 pieces. And we'll thread one through one side and tie it. And make it into a knot. And then we'll do the same on the other side. If you want, you can snip one of the short ends. Thread it through. And tie it off. And then snip the short end once again. And now you can tie it on once we put on the hair. If you don't want hair, you don't have to. And then you can tie it in the front, or you can tie it in the back underneath the hair, whichever you prefer. So next we'll make the hair. And for this, you'll need to cut out a bunch of little snippets of yarn. So we'll take it and we'll measure how long we want the hair to be. So I want her hair, or his hair, to be about to his shoulders. So then I'll take it, put a little bit on the head, and then so I see it's this long. So then I'll make a bunch of little strings that are that size. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut bunches of little strings. There is 29 that I used. I don't know if I'll use all of them. If you want thicker hair, you cut more string. If you just want a thinner hair and not to glue all the pieces, then you just cut less strings. So I'll be using hot glue because the Elmer's glue doesn't stick as well, but it does work. So first thing you do is take about 3 or 2, and then you put a little bit of glue on the head. And then before it dries, you put the hair on. And then you continue. I like to make a little bit of an outline before I put the rest of the hair on top. And then, of course, there's strings everywhere. Make sure not to use too much hot glue or you will end up with less yarn looking hair and it'll look more like shiny. Which, I mean, might be the effect you're trying to achieve, which if it is, feel free to experiment. So if I just wanted some thin hair, I just leave it like this. as it is, I want a little bit thicker hair, so I will put some underneath where I started. So then I take you can always cut your hair evenly when you get to the end too. So don't worry too much about having all your pieces the same. As long as they're like mostly even, it should work. So this is what it's looking like so far. And I think it needs a little bit more hair. Be careful not to burn yourself on the hot glue. And I think that should be good. So I have a few pieces left over and hot glue everywhere, but she has hair, or he. So if you want, you can braid the hair, or you can use a pipe cleaner or a piece of yarn or felt to tie it in a ponytail. I will just take a piece of white felt and my scissors. So you can take a piece of felt and tie the hair. Instead of hot gluing the sash closed like I did, you can just tie it and then you can make a bunch of different clothes, so you can have different clothing for the doll. You can accessorize them. So then you can tie in a ponytail, like so. Or you can take the bonnets or hat you made, which I put off to the side, and you can tie it. I will tie it in the back underneath. So then you take it and then you tie it just in a bow or simple knot that's easy to undo. So then you can undo it later if you like. And then she has a hat, or they have a hat.
I hope you had fun making your corn husk doll. You should leave them to dry for about 2 days, so that way they don't bend or mold. And then they'll keep for about a year, as long as you don't leave them in the direct sunlight or in really damp conditions. So I hope you had fun making them, and that concludes our video.